The Adeptus Astartes purge the wicked wherever they hide. Burdened with the responsibility of sundering the most treacherous enemies and defectors of the Imperium, many a mortal sleeps easier, knowing that the Emperor's angels hunt the pawns of ruin in their stead. For today, we shall elucidate the chapters of the Space Marines, derived from the lineage of the stern Knight of Caliban, Lion El'Jonson. The successor chapters of the First Legion, the Dark Angels. Of all the weapons wielded by the Emperor's legions, it is not the cannon or blades that are most deadly. It is knowledge that has carried us to victories beyond count, and wisdom that has broken empires and kings. Among the Legiones Astartes, there are debates on the efficacy and strength of each legion. Rivalries abound, and grudges are born from the glories won and lost in battle. Though of all the legions, there would be one held above all as the template for each to follow. The First Legion of the Adeptus Astartes, the Dark Angels. As the first of the Space Marine legions to be founded, the history and heritage of such a prestigious honor would be far-reaching. First deployed during the end of the Unification Wars, it would be the First Legion's solemn duty to aid in the culling of the Emperor's enemies of Holy Terror. Exceptionally deadly from their inception, the First Legion of the Adeptus Astartes would be armed with extensive and powerful advanced weaponries and armor systems, while simultaneously being quick to produce and optimize for battle. With the Emperor of Mankind's utter conquest of Holy Terror, his first brutal army of Thunder Warriors would by necessity need to be culled. Alongside the Legio Custodes, the First Legion would aid in the culling of the Goliaths of Terra. Heralding the new age of warriors at the forefront of humanity's conquest of the galaxy, the Astartes of the First would lay the foundations and deeds for all Astartes that would follow. Their origins shrouded in mystery, the First Legion would wage war with distinction, yet the chronicles of their victories would be untold. Initially comprising of a diverse range of recruits from the islands of Albia to the Anatolic steppes, varieties of Terran cultures would define the Legion's early service. The crucible of knowledge from eras of untold wars from Terra's history, the First would forge a mentality and martial code of exceptional pedigree, forming so-called hosts within the Legion that would later be remolded into the Hexagrammaton. These combat doctrines of war would specialize in decoders of battle strategy. As their name would be known as the Angels of Death, the First Legion would adopt a symbol to represent their guise to which they had been attributed. The skeletal icon of death itself would adorn their banners, and as the left hand of the Emperor, the First Legion would accrue their battle honors and glories with humble, grim pride. With the Emperor's expanse into the Sol System and beyond, the newly proclaimed Great Crusade to unite humanity would see to the expanse of the Emperor's war effort. As the remaining 19 legions would grow in number before being sent to conquer the galaxy, alone the First Legion would stand vigil as their brother legions would grow in number. Known singularly as his Angels, the First would cleanse the frozen moons of the outer segments of the solar system for 10 Terran years, further refining their formations into orders specializing in specific arts of war. The First Legion would face the most grueling and difficult trials laid forth by the Emperor and succeed with their continually improving skill at arms. Their armor painted deep shades of purest black, the First Legion would return to Holy Terror as toughened veterans of war. Seeking no fanfare for their deeds, the First would be assigned to the shipyards of Mars and receive vessels dating from the days of Old Night. For each other legion, they would be gifted ships, but the vaunted First would be entrusted with a fleet. The first to be crafted, refined and proven, it would be the duty of the First Legion to carve a path at the spear tip of the Great Crusade. They were the first of the Angels of Death, and their legacy would be every legion's heritage. As the remaining legions brought planets into compliance, the first would hold the collective wrath of a remorseless galaxy at bay. As worlds of humans would be brought into the fold of humanity, his angels would cleanse nearby hovels of untold terrors from existence. For every shining spark of hope gleaned for the Imperium, the First Legion would lay waste to 100 nightmares. Their many victories against fathomless monsters of unremitting cruelty censured from the knowledge of the First Legion's histories to better safeguard humanity. Yet with their continued victories, the First Legion would slowly be consumed by their ego. As the triumphs of the Legion would grow, the Astartes of the First would enshrine tradition as their foremost virtue. As each host and order grew in power, they would jealously guard their expertise, teachings, and tactics. Turning upon themselves, the Astartes of the First would become secretive and no longer share their knowledge with their brother legions. With some legions such as the Ultramarines and Imperial Fists challenging the First Legion's power with their Primarch's discoveries, the superiority of the First would be challenged. Their pride would begin to cost the Legion victories and losses to their number. Defeat would be a bitter taste for a Legion accustomed to unchallenged victories and the greatest of weapons, vessels, and numbers to fight their opponents. Yet with the discovery of Caliban by the scouts of the 5th Legion, the First Legion's downfall would be prevented. Within the dark forests of Caliban, a Primarch had faced the dangers of the feral world. Lion L. Johnson, Master of the Order of Knights, had culled the beasts of the forests and united Caliban's populace under his own banner. Despite the world's primitive technological capabilities, the Knights of Caliban had faced the terrors of their homeworld and conquered them. With the Emperor of Mankind's reunion with his gene son, the Lion would be given command of the vaunted First Legion, renaming them the Dark Angels after the ancient Calibanite myth of their heritage. A new era would begin for the First Legion. The Lion would test his new warriors to observe their prowess in battle. Standing against the captain of each company, garbed in their cataphracti patterned Terminator armor, the Lion would best each in combat with his own Calibanite steel. Taking their measure, the Lion would begin to incorporate his Knights of Caliban into the Legion. Ashamed at the state of their once glorious Legion, the Terran Astartes of the First would attempt to redeem their honor by throwing themselves into engagements with renewed zeal. Yet with dissent rising between the Terran and Caliban Astartes, the Lion would disband the knightly orders and Astartes hosts in order to rebuild the Legion as a unified army. As Caliban's surface would be transformed by the Imperium, so too would the First Legion. The Lion would see the galaxy teeming with beasts to slay in the name of the Imperium, and with his Dark Angels by his side, he would slay every one of them that dared to stand in his way. A primal force of destruction, the Lion would not heed the passions often championed by his brother Primarchs. Instead, he would renew his Legion's honor by crushing the enemies of humanity. Merging the teachings of Caliban with the Terran Astartes' experiences, the Hexagrammaton would be forged, and his quest to reunite the disparate companies of his Legion into a cohesive fighting army. After years of toil, the Lion would succeed in reorganizing his fragmented Legion into 100,000 Astartes strong. Swearing an oath to his Astartes, the Lion would declare, "We are the Angels of Darkness. For us there is no peace, no end by war and death. We shall not walk in the golden halls of mankind's future, but stand resolute in the shadows beyond. While we yet draw breath, this Imperium will not fall, and we will not know defeat. For I pledge every warrior, every drop of blood in the Legion in the name of victory, no matter the cost." Assigning new masters to each newly formed wing of the Dark Angels, the Lion would lead his Legion into the wars to come, pledged to kill the enemies of his Imperium and nothing else. As the Great Crusade waged on, the Dark Angels would reclaim their glory as a respected and indomitable force. Despite the Lion's dour and cold demeanor, his deeds as a general of his Imperium would be exceptional. Bringing many worlds into compliance and slaying malevolent terrors of the galaxy, the Lion's quest to unify the galaxy in the name of humanity would be absolute. Never relenting in his duty, the Lion would never rest on his laurels for parades or self-indulgence, but rather prepare for the next battle to bring humanity closer to its ultimate goal. For these qualities, the Lion would be considered for the rank of War Master, despite the honor being bequeathed to the Primarch of the Lunar Wolves, Horus Lupercal. Yet with the War Master's fall to the thrall of the ruinous powers, it would be the Lion and his Dark Angels, which would be arguably the greatest threat to the traitor's schemes. Ordered to wage war on the furthest reaches of the galaxy, Horus Lupercal would spread the Dark Angels far from his treachery before his opening gambit. Despite their stalling to face the traitors, the Dark Angels would nonetheless prove an exceptionally potent force against the War Master. Facing the Night Lords during the Framas Crusade, the Dark Angels would best the undisciplined rabble of the 8th Legion, yet be delayed from returning to Holy Terra to defend the Throne World. Joining with the Blood Angels and Ultramarines within the Ultramar system, the 3 legions and their Primarchs would be separated from the Imperium with the birth of the Great Rift across the galaxy. Further attempting to staunch the wound inflicted upon humanity, the Primarchs would found the contingency of Imperium Secundus in an attempt to create an empire to replace the potentially destroyed Imperium. Yet with the news of the Emperor's continued survival, the Primarchs would resolve to travel to Holy Terra. Enabling the Blood Angels to breach an opening within the ruined storm, the Ultramarines and Dark Angels would not return to Holy Terra in time to prevent the death of Sanguinius or wounding of the Emperor. Instead, Lionel Johnson would attempt to draw the traitors from the Throne World by razing their own homeworlds to the ground. Destroying the Emperor's Children homeworld of Chemos and Death Guard homeworld of Barbarus, the Dark Angels would be unable to prevent the traitors from enacting the Siege of Terra. As the Emperor of Mankind began his long vigil upon the Golden Throne, the Dark Angels under the command of the Lion would seek retribution. Rallying the Loyalist legions in their great scouring of the traitors to the throne, the First Legion would pursue the fleeing traitors across the galaxy. Despite many foes being slain by their hand, the Dark Angels would attempt to muster reinforcements from their homeworld of Caliban to better suit the Legion's new duty to destroy the War Master's broken armies. Yet as they arrived in orbit of Caliban, the planet's defenses would fire upon the Lion's fleet. Enraged, the Lion would lead his men to confront the duplicitous warriors whom had once served in his name. Confronting his once most trusted mentor and friend, Luthor, the Lion would duel the now chaos-empowered knight. The Lion would be wounded by his once father figure, and with the deceit of his actions realized, Luthor would be racked with guilt at his actions. As the planet began to be torn asunder by the birth of a chaos-infused warp storm, the Watchers in the Dark would rescue the Primarch. Caliban would be sundered, with only the fortress monastery of Alderuk and the earth it stood on surviving the destruction wrought by the ruinous powers. Yet with time, Caliban's broken earth would be salvaged and be formed into the vast space vessel known as the Rock. Serving as the Dark Angel's homeworld and flagship, the Rock would harbor its armies, armaments, secrets, and deep within its chambers, unknown by all but the Emperor himself, the Primarch. Entombed within a stasis chamber, the Lion slumbers until the time for his Dark Angel's redemption shall be at hand. Their quest to hunt down the fallen angels whom betrayed their trust, seemingly never fated to end, the Dark Angels know not as to the fate of their Gene Father, hidden within the most sacred and hidden chamber of their home. With the fall of their brothers to the thrall of chaos, the Dark Angels conceal the truth of their Legion's corruption from any outside of their ranks. Fearing censure or even excommunication from the Imperium, should such a truth be revealed, the Dark Angels go to any lengths to obscure and redact any traces of the fallen angels of Caliban. With their homeworld destroyed and Primarch missing, the Dark Angels would busy themselves with the destruction of the enemies of his Imperium. Yet as news of the fallen survival would be revealed, the Dark Angels would resolve to purge their treacherous kin from the galaxy. Despite all that the First Legion had endured, a glint of redemption sparked in their duty to slay their former brothers. Atoning for their failure, the Dark Angels would be divided into successor, so-called Unforgiven chapters by the ruling of the Codex Astartes. Yet the imperative goal of all Sons of the Lion would be to hunt down and destroy the Fallen, no matter their directives or assignments tasked by the Imperium. Torturing the former First Captain of the Legion, Luthor, for centuries within the bowels of the rock, the Dark Angels would attempt to decipher the treachery indulged by the Fallen. Yet with the invasion of the corrupted Fallen Demon Prince, Marbas, of the Rock, Luthor would escape. Despite their reinforcement of Primaris Marines sent forth by the returned Ultramarines Primarch, Roboute Guilliman, portents of the Fallen building a sizable army within Imperium Nihilus trouble the Unforgiven chapters of the Dark Angels. Sightings of Fallen within the Somnium stars in numbers capable of threatening the Imperium, now of the utmost danger, with their former commander now returned to wreak havoc across the galaxy. The Dark Angels, bereft of their homeworld, draw recruits from a variety of planets, but predominantly recruit from feudal worlds lacking in industrial sophistication, alike to Caliban. Initially recruiting from a singular world known as the Plains World, the Dark Angels would diversify their candidates with the Plains World's corruption by the Tyranid Xenos. Taking only the strongest juveniles from each planet, recruiters screen the candidates to join the Legion and erase all traces of their past lives. Undertaking the rites of initiation akin to other chapters of the Astartes, the Dark Angels aspirants who fail in their undertakings are mind-wiped and converted into servitors. Unlike other chapters, the Dark Angels use a preponderance of servitors in the stead of chapter serfs. Believing serfs with free will to be corruptible to their cause, the Dark Angels prevent compromise of their secrets and schemes. The gene seed of the aspirants and veterans of the chapter are amongst the purest of any Astartes. Degradation of their gene seed is unheard of, as even their Primaris Space Marines of the chapter carry gene seed of amongst the greatest quality observed in any chapter. With no known gene flaws or mutations, it is nonetheless baffling as to the High Lords of Terror's decision to rarely found new successor chapters of the First. Collectively known as the Unforgiven, the successors of the First Legion share a uniquely close bond of cooperation compared to their cousin legions. Rumored to function more akin to a legion than separate chapters, the Emperor's Holy Inquisition often caused the Unforgiven chapters to take flight from war zones with their mere presence. As a result, the Unforgiven chapters are regarded with distrust from most branches of the Imperium. With many successors of the Dark Angels disappearing from Imperial records shortly after their founding, the Adeptus Terra only permits new chapters under the most desperate of circumstances. Yet with the involvement of Roboute Guilliman's position as Lord Commander of the Imperium, the Dark Angel successors have once again burgeoned. Much to the dismay of the Ecclesiarchy, the Dark Angels do not give praise to the Emperor of Mankind as a god. Venerating their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, above all with exception to the Emperor, the Dark Angels believe the Master of Mankind to be a singular man, but a man regardless. Fully consumed by their betrayal of their kin in the form of the fallen angels, the Dark Angels are relentless in their pursuit of their traitorous brethren. Driven to wipe all traces of their Legion's sin from the galaxy, the Dark Angels seek absolution from the destruction of their homeworld and fracturing of their Legion. For 10 millennia, the First have toiled in their pursuit of the Fallen. Capturing fallen angels and returning their charges to the Rock, the Dark Angels' interrogator chaplains utilize every method in their means to cause their fallen kin to repent. Given a swift and painless death should they comply, the Fallen rarely surrender to the methods of the interrogators. The names of the slain Fallen added to the Book of Salvation. Though it is true to say that only the inner circle of the Dark Angels know the truth of the Fallen, secrecy is a trait necessary for any Astartes of the First. Preferring to stand alone, or at most with their cousin Astartes, the Dark Angels are stringent in their dealings with outsiders. Impatient and terse with their dealings, the Dark Angels are seen as aloof and difficult to work with by their counterparts. Notoriously intolerant of abhumans, the Dark Angels refuse to deal with such militarum contingents. Yet despite their friction with Imperium forces, the Dark Angels are amongst the most capable and respected chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. The first service to the Death Watch, a continual example of their fortitude in battle, the Dark Angels occupy several senior positions amongst the ranks of the elite Xenos hunters. Bringing extensive knowledge to the Death Watch, the Dark Angels are often at the forefront of the most dangerous of engagements. Though some scholars posit that the Dark Angels extensively serve within the Death Watch in order to use its resources to ascertain the location of splinters of the Fallen. During their time as a legion, the Dark Angels' numbers would peak at the amount of 180,000 Astartes. Amongst the largest of all the legions, such as the Ultramarines and Sons of Horus, the Dark Angels would be one of the single most powerful armies within the Imperium. Difficult to observe by outsiders, the Dark Angels would maintain an obscured and complex command protocol in order to maintain secrecy within the Legion, often presenting themselves to allied forces without explanation to their command structure, to allow their allies to correctly identify the Legion's leadership, to prove their insight as commanders and earn the respect of the Legion. Comprised of many of the most accomplished Astartes within the Great Crusade, the Dark Angels would gain incredible skill and proficiency in every discipline of war. Deployed widely during the Great Crusade, and armed with the single most deadly weaponry recovered from the Dark Age of technology, the Dark Angels seen en masse would be a great omen for any engagement necessary to draw so many of the deadly First Legion to bear. Gifted with the largest fleet of any of the legions, the Dark Angels, even prior to their reunion with their Primarch, would bear many victories and compliances across the galaxy. Encumbered during the Horus Heresy due to the War Master's meticulous planning to divide the Legion, the Dark Angels would be fragmented lest they overwhelm the war effort of the traitors. Denying the influence of the War Master's warrior lodges due to their inherent structure of wings and orders, the Dark Angels would deny the corrupting influence of chaos. Yet with the legions fracturing by their separatist kin and the scouring of the traitors to the throne, the fractured legion of the Dark Angels would be broken down into Codex-compliant chapters. More insular and paranoid, the wider Imperium would note the further spiral of secrecy subsuming the Dark Angels. Turning a blind eye to the chapter's new monastic and reclusive behavior, the newly founded Inquisition and other Imperial orders would sanction the Dark Angels to continue to serve the Imperium due to the loss of their homeworld, Primarch, and otherwise exceptional deeds. Instrumental during the scouring of the traitors, the Dark Angels would prove themselves to be effective in driving the traitors to the dark corners of the galaxy. Whilst the Dark Angels follow the combat doctrines outlined by the Codex Astartes, the former Legion's history of stubborn defiance endures. Ignoring objectives should they catch even the hint of information usable to track down the Fallen, though an indomitable force of reckoning for the Imperium, the Dark Angels are not without flaws. Should a human life, or an Astartes life, stand in the way of a clue to track the Fallen, such life will be readily sacrificed for the need of the chapter. For records exist of the Dark Angels turning on their allies in order to prevent information of the Fallen from being revealed to those outside of the First. For any who survive with knowledge of the Fallen are taken to the Rock to be lobotomized as servitors to the chapter. Adhering to the Codex Astartes, with exception given to the Deathwing and Ravenwing companies, organization of the chapter is otherwise compliant with the tome's outlines. Extremely flexible in their use of combined arms and rapid deployments, the Dark Angels employ immensely proficient tacticians and specialists. With the incorporation of Primaris Marines further bolstering their exceptional skills at hunting down their prey and striking with overwhelming firepower. Incorporating these new units into their Ravenwing company to great effect, the Dark Angels have become reinvigorated with their new blood into the chapter. The core of the majority of strike forces comprise of battle line squads supported by close combat and fire support elements. Yet there do exist unique specialist formations within the chapter. The elite Deathwing 1st Company and Ravenwing 2nd Company can be called to support any engagement should the need arise, though their primary objective is always to hunt the fallen angels should their presence be found. The 3rd Company, the Unmerciful, 4th Company, the Feared, and 5th Company, the Unrelenting, serving as the backbone of the chapter. These battle companies serve as the chapter's might brought to bear. The 6th Company, the Resolute, and 7th Company, the Unbowed, are defined as tactical companies. Comprised entirely of tactical squads, the 6th and 7th Companies excel at launching diversionary tactics and flanking maneuvers. The 8th Company, the Wrathful, consist entirely of assault squads and act as the close support company. Outfitted with jump packs, the 8th Company overwhelm enemy positions and cleave their way through defenses using melee combat. The 9th Company, the Remorseless, consists entirely of Devastator squads and serve as the fire support company. Armed with the most powerful long-range fire support weaponry of the chapter, the 9th Company aid their frontline brothers with overwhelming firepower. And finally, the 10th Company, the Redeemed, harbour the chapter's Scout Marines. The neophytes of the chapter train to become full battle brothers, with their most veteran members being assigned to strike forces to the other companies as needed. Yet with the return of Rubute Guilliman and the influx of Primaris Marines, the structure of the Dark Angels and its successors has once more shifted. Now composing of 6 battle line squads, 2 close support squads, and 2 fire support squads, most deployments now consist of a battle company with additional Deathwing, Ravenwing, and Scout Marines bolstering their forces as needed. With exception to the 1st, 2nd, and 10th Company, each company maintains a variety of transport armor designs, such as Rhinos, Razorbacks, and Repulsors. Dreadnoughts of the Legion remain in service to the company to which they served during their internment, and slumber within the Rock's Halls of Silence until they are needed. During the era of the Great Crusade, the Dark Angels would paint their armor jet black, with the Calibanite Astartes adorning the heraldry of their knight houses on their right pauldron. The Lion would order his sons of Caliban to honor the forests of their homeworld by painting their left pauldrons dark green. Yet with the end of the Horus Heresy, the color schemes of the chapter would be reorganized. The 2nd Company would remain jet black to honor their heritage, with the wider chapters adorning their plate with the dark green of Caliban. Whilst the elite 1st Company, the Deathwing, would paint their Terminator armor bone white in honor of a battle fought against the Genestealer cult on the Plainsworld. Said to paint their armor in the color of death, as dead men walking, the ghost-like Deathwing of the engagement did not expect to survive their battle with the Devourer. Yet their fighting spirit would be proven, and their reclamation of the world would cement the colors of the Deathwing forevermore. For the regular Astartes of the chapter, each battle brother signifies their battlefield specialty on their right pauldron, with their squad numerical on their right shoulder. Whether they be battle line, close support, fire support, or veterans. The winged blade adorns their left pauldron, though members of the 10th Company, for not earning their wings, utilize only the blade of their chapter. The Deathwing replace the bladed sword with a broken variant, and the Ravenwing utilize a blade held with a single winged raven claw. The Battle and Reserve Companies show their company identifier on their left knee plate, whilst veterans of the chapter are identified by their armor's adornment in hooded tabards and cloaks. Signifying their knowledge of the fallen, these cloaks are used to hide their shame of the chapter's fallen angels. Unlike many Codex-compliant chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, the Dark Angels use terminologies and ranks to orchestrate the command between their various successors. The Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels acts as the Chapter Master of the First. Said to command not only the Dark Angels, the Supreme Grand Master leads the chapter's inner circle and is privy to every secret of the chapter and its legion's history. supposedly commanding every successor chapter as the most senior rank of all the line's descendants. The Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels is amongst the most powerful individuals of the Imperium. For each wing of the Dark Angels, there also exists a Grand Master. The Grand Master of the Death Wing commands the elite first company of the chapter and acts as the successor to the Supreme Grand Master. The Grand Master of the Raven Wing commands the chapter's second company and serves as the chapter's leader of the hunt of the fallen angels. The Grand Master of the Librarians maintains the chapter's records and the protection of the chapter's secrets. The Master Apothecary tends to the chapter's medical needs and biological research, with his most important duty to preserve the chapter's near-peerless gene seed stocks. The Master of the Rock is a title equivalent to a chapter's Master of the Forge. Leading the chapter's tech marines, vehicle pools, and maintenance of the chapter's armory, the Master of the Rock bears the technological prowess of a Magos of the Tech Priests of Mars. Permanently hardwired into the control nave console of the Rock, the Master of the Rock maintains the workings of the gigantic vessel, but is not privy to the dealings of the chapter's inner circle due to his creed's ties to the Adeptus Mechanicus. The High Interrogator of the chapter serves alike to a chapter's High Chaplain. As Reclusiarch and Master of Sanctity of the First, the High Interrogator trains his junior-ranked Interrogator chaplains in their arts of psychological manipulation. The Grand Master of the Fleet commands the chapter's naval contingents, transports, and warship assets. Captains of the Legion are known as Company Masters and lead each of the 10 companies of the chapter. Although serving as members of the inner circle of the chapter, the Company Masters are not privy to the most dangerous secrets of the chapter. Each a veteran of the first company, the Death Wing, the Company Masters have proven their mettle in battle as reliable commanders and are given the honor to lead. Since the adoption of the Codex Astartes, lieutenants have served within the Dark Angels as the right-hand facilitators of their company masters. Often splitting each battle company into 2 smaller demi-companies, the lieutenants lead these smaller battalions into battle, allowing for their experience to place them as company masters. Should their senior officers fall in battle, the lieutenants are a vital role for each company. And for those of exceptional battle prowess within the elite first company, there also exist the Death Wing Knights. Imbued with the lion's own semblance of strength, these veterans of the first company uphold the traditions of the chapter whilst purging all manner of their most deadly foes. Members of the inner circle, the Death Wing Knights are brought to the Chamber of Judgment within the Rock to face the trials incumbent of their rank. Once prevailing in these tasks, the Knights are presented with a Mace of Absolution and Storm Shield by the Watchers in the Dark as a mark of their office. With even these elite warriors promoted to the rank of Knight Masters, armed with the Flail of the Unforgiven to better slay the enemies of the chapter. The Raven Wing Black Knights storm into battle on their customized Mark IV assault bikes. Heavily armored cavalry units, the Black Knights pass 7 rites of the Raven in order to bear the honor. Carrying their Corvus hammers into battle, their bikes' plasma talons rend the enemies in their path. Led by their Raven Wing Huntmasters, the Black Knights form rally points for their kin companies to support. Each company also bear their veterans and champions with humble reverence. Ancients of the companies carry the chapter's banners into battle, spurring their battle brothers to fight with renewed vigor. And for their champions, each company appoints such heroes of battle by combination of honor duels, contests of strength, and other means to challenge one another. Confronting enemy warlords, captains, and senior officers, the Dark Angel's champions stride into battle not only against the enemies of his Imperium, but also any Space Wolf champion offered to challenge their chapter's honor in battle. For the Dark Angels have many enemies across the stars, and should they relent in their persecution of the guilty, humanity shall be subsumed by darkness. Empires, monuments, and legends are built by those who are merely victorious. We were born to kill, not to build. We are not idle long enough to leave monuments, and we leave no work of the enemy intact to spawn legends. We are the First Legion, and he that follows in our wake is death. The Angels of Absolution are a second founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Retaining strong bonds to their primogenitor, unlike their peers of the Unforgiven chapters, the Angels of Absolution believe their past sins have been cleansed. Seeing the fall of Caliban as their act of atonement made to the Master of Mankind, the chapter's title belies their culture of forgiveness. Recruiting aspirants from the planets of Grimport, Plainsworld, and other unknown feral worlds, their bloodline is shared with each of their Unforgiven kinsmen due to their proclivity to evenly distribute and share candidates. The members of the chapter's inner circle are known as the Hidden Brotherhood and maintain their knowledge of the events which caused the fall of their brethren. Though complying with the Unforgiven chapter's mission to hunt down the fallen angels of their creed, the Angels of Absolution regardless do not believe their acts of interrogation and execution will bring their kinsmen closer to redemption. Venerated for their service during the invasion of Nova Sulis, Corinth Crusade, and Siege of Vrax, the chapter is also noted for committing the entirety of its might to fight the War Master of Chaos during Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. Partially compliant to the Codex Astartes, the chapter fields 10 companies alike to its outlines and paints their ceramite bone white to symbolize their restitution. Their backpacks and chest aquilers trimmed with black. Red tactical symbology is indicated on their right pauldrons, with low Gothic numerals centered on their design in black to identify their squad, inverting the company markings of their primogenitor on their right knee plate. Veterans of the chapter and its inner circle typically don green hoods, cloaks and tabards to symbolize their knowledge of the fallen and further guards their hearts from shame. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull imposed over a black right-facing wing on a field of white. Currently deployed to persecute the Purge of Allhallow, their temporary alliance with the Tau Empire allows for their cleansing of the psychic plague besetting the planet. For within the Unforgiven chapters, it is beneficial for at least one of their creed not to be mired in guilt or shame. The Angels of Redemption are a second founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Relentless in their persecution of the fallen, these uncompromising sons of the Lion have garnered a reputation throughout the Imperium as among the most venerated chapters of the Astartes. Despite their martial skill, their habit of abandoning their allies should signs of the fallen present themselves results in Imperial forces refusing to accept their aid. Evading censure by the Emperor's Holy Inquisition for their flagrant actions due to the birth of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the actions of Abaddon the Despoiler, in a strange manner, have unknowingly aided the chapter. Hunting the fallen alongside the Angels of Vengeance and Lion Sable during the Forgotten Wars lasting from 580.M31 to 632.M32, the ruinous powers annihilated the Lion Sable and wrought a heavy toll on the Angels of Redemption. Usurping the chapter world of their fallen brethren, the Angels of Vengeance and Retribution replenished their numbers from the Lion Sable's fiefdom. Earning further glories during the defense of Gatling Hive, Achilles Crusade, Third War for Armageddon, and War of Beasts, the chapter's elite 1st and 2nd companies, the Red Wings, lay waste to the most dangerous enemies of the Imperium. Clad in halved ceramite of bone white and forest green, the chapter mark their chest aquilers and tactical designations with red paint on their right pauldrons, stenciling their squad number on their tactical roll with white low Gothic numerals. Their company is designated on their right knee plate. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull flanked by black wings on a field of bone white, strikes fear into the hearts of the wicked. Concealing their warplate with hoods, cloaks and tabards of red, the shame of each veteran of the chapter, knowing of the fall of Caliban, guards their hearts from enticement to join their fallen kin. The Angels of Vengeance are a second founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. By far the most clandestine of the Unforgiven chapters, The Angels of Vengeance take no pride in open displays of valor, nor plaudits won in war, despite the extensive list of honors they have accrued. Single-minded in their persecution of the enemies of the Imperium, these cold and obsessive Astartes never relent in their purge of the unclean. Unwilling to ever retreat, no matter the foes they face, the dogged tenacity of the Angels of Vengeance has often wrought immense casualties due to their refusal to adapt their methods of war, no matter the effectiveness of the tactics of their foes. Achieving near impossible victories, won through obstinate determination, failure is not tolerated by these fearless Sons of the Lion. Their hunt for the fallen, alongside the Angels of Redemption and Lion Sable into the Eye of Terror, severely depleting their number during the Forgotten Wars. The extinction of the Lion Sable chapter allowed for their replenishment using the stock of their chapter homeworld, Nachtwald. Honored for their service during the Siege of Dominus Prime and Siege of San Apolis, though such battles on occasion depleted their numbers to the point of requiring an entire century to recover, their efforts have regardless been invaluable to the Imperium. Appointing their Terminator Elite to their Dreadwing 1st Company and Mobile Hunters of the Raptor Wing 2nd Company, their veneration of their Legion of Origin is further exemplified with the conventions of their heraldry. Mimicking the First Legion's panoply of war from the era of the Great Crusade, their black ceramite is adorned with bone-white chest aquillas and tactical designations on their right pauldrons. Dark red low Gothic numerals are centered on their designs to indicate their squad number, whilst alike to other Unforgiven chapters, their company is noted on their right knee plate. The symbol of their chapter, a red-cowled, stylized winged white skull on a field of black, epitomizes their duty to bring the fallen to justice. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines, the Angels of Vengeance embark renewed of purpose and imbued with strength, deploying their new Inceptor and Assault squads with such great effect that few enemies can deny their overwhelming assaults. The Disciples of Caliban are a successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Though no record pertains to their founding, it is said that Supreme Grand Master Anaziel petitioned the High Lords of Terror for the chapter's creation during the 37th millennium. Despite the lack of precedence for such a request, after much debate, the rulers of the Throne World relented and allowed for the chapter's creation, with some scholars speculating that the Master of the First held some fell secret used as leverage for their sanction. Scrutinized to standards beyond any other successor of the Unforgiven chapters, the gene seed used to create such warriors was sired from their purest gene banks. Monitored even to this day, with no allowance for any deviation in mutations or signs of corruption, this exacting pedigree of recruitment causes many to believe the chapter serves a unique purpose. Rumored to be sired in order to capture the renegade Astartes, Cypher, this fleet-based chapter excels at swift surgical strikes and houses a bountiful arsenal of weapons. Assigning a relic bearer to each company of the chapter, these venerated souls carry the most prized artifacts of the chapter into battle, yet none know if such warriors are purely ceremonial or serve a more deadly purpose. Clad in dark green ceramite trimmed with black, this partially Codex-compliant chapter utilizes white tactical markings on their right pauldron, with their squad number centered on such designs with black low Gothic numerals, designating their company by use of the Unforgiven chapter's unique heraldry scheme on their right knee plate. The members of their inner circle don ivory-colored tabards and cloaks. The symbol of their chapter, a white lion clutching a sword on a field of green, honors the sundered homeworld of their Primarch. Extremely noble and pious souls, the Disciples of Caliban have proven to be an exceptionally effective chapter, whose glorious deeds exceed many of their longest-standing, Unforgiven peers. The Bringers of Judgment are a successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Sired from an unknown founding, these fanatical zealots give even their Unforgiven peers pause when confronting those who bear even the slightest hint of heresy. purging entire worlds should a single instance of rebellion be found. None are deemed innocent in the eyes of these foreboding Astartes. Clad in white ceramite, adorned with golden helmets, pauldrons, vambraces, gauntlets and chest aquillas, the chapter marks their tactical role with black paint on their right pauldron, using white high Gothic numerals to identify their squad, atop red diamond heraldry. Uniquely marking their greaves and sabatons with golden flames, these pious sons of the Lion relish all opportunities to display their fanaticism. The symbol of their chapter, a black weighing scale on a field of gold, epitomizes their duty to bring the Emperor's justice to the wicked of the void. Abhorring weakness in all its forms, the bringers of justice punish all infractions with death, causing even the Emperor's Holy Inquisition to decry their many atrocities.
What is our quest? To purge our shame through the death of those who turned from the Lion.
The Consecrators are a successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Created during an unknown founding with few records pertaining to their service prior to the 40th millennium, the chapter has been meticulous in redacting and obscuring their past. Founded by the then Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels, Valafar, and tasked with compiling and guarding the histories of the Unforgiven chapters, these dour warriors were gifted among the most ancient relics and armaments in order to carry out their duty. Among the most severe chapters who fight in the name of the Emperor, the Consecrators strike suddenly without warning, leaving little more than ashes in their wake. The first noted instance of their service, recorded during the Second Kapapin Schism of 200.M40 by the field notary Corwin Quilp, the chapter deployed the entirety of its might to aid the beleaguered Astartes, defending the Sanctum of Silence. Within 6 hours of battle, the Consecrators eradicated the Schismatists' command structure, withdrawing with no words uttered to their allies. For 3 solar decades, the chapter would remain hidden, skulking the void for more enemies to crush, leaving no trace of their involvement. Aiding the Dark Angels Chapter 4th Company during the Arulus intervention of 230.M40, despite the ties to their primogenitor, the Consecrators once again remained silent as they partook in the slaughter. Alike to phantoms of the First Legion's revered heroes, the chapter nurtures close ties to their primogenitor, and as such, the ancient Heavenfall Blade, the Sword of Sanctity, after recovering it from the Greenskins following the death of its original bearer, Grandmaster Orius of the Disciples of Caliban. Answering the summons from Supreme Grandmaster Azrael to face the forces of Chaos during the assault on the ruins of Caliban, Aquila's Crusade, 13th Black Crusade, War of Beasts, invasion of the Stygius Sector, and massacre at Darkmoor. These merciless Astartes need little encouragement to lay low the enemies of the Imperium. Clad in black ceramite, painted with red vertical stripes on their helmets, the chapter's use of older models of power armor such as Crusade, Iron, and Maximus variants honors their Legion of Origin. The veterans and Inner Circle members of the chapter donning crimson hoods and tabards as a sign of their knowledge of the fallen angels. Marking their tactical role with white paint scented with black logothic numerals to identify their squad on their right pauldrons, the chapter alike to their unforgiven kinsmen designate their company with heraldry on their right knee plate. The symbol of their chapter, a red-winged flame adorned with an iron halo on a white roundel atop a field of black, bears striking similarity to the Legion of Old's Firewing. Revering the legacy of their forebears of the Hexagrammaton, the Consecrators uphold the virtues of the Firewing by honing their skills as assassins, duelists, and special operators. The Cowled Wardens are a successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Sired during an unknown founding and appointed to the Tears of Puris region of the Siracoid Belt, the chapter eschews the use of a fortress monastery and instead operates within multiple hollowed-out asteroids. Publicly tasked with purging the Jahangir Xenos within this region of space. In truth, these Unforgiven Astartes investigate signs of a large fallen presence. Clad in black ceramite, adorned with gold aquillas, pauldron trim, purple shoulder insets, and helmets, the chapter marks their tactical role with gold paint on their right pauldron, whilst assigning their squad number with black, high Gothic numerals. The symbol of their chapter, a gold-hooded skull on a field of purple, belies their pious yet secretive nature. Imprisoning each captured fallen angel within the icy catacombs carved from the innards of the asteroids of the Siracoid Belt, woe betide any who incur the wrath of these dour sons of the Lion. The Guardians of the Covenant are a successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Fervent in their dedication to study the arts of war, their Primarch's teachings, and the deeds of the Emperor, these Astartes sharpen their minds as much as their blades. Debating and analyzing every battlefield victory, defeat, and stratagem employed by their forebears, it is the objective of the chapter to never be bested through combat by learning from the past. Monastic and pious souls, these warrior monks of the Angels of Death regularly compile tomes of knowledge detailing the life of their Primarch, and seek every and all opportunity to increase their knowledge of his legacy. Master artificers capable of crafting tapestries, armor, banners, and other heraldic symbols, each armored vehicle and prized weapon is inscribed with the teachings of the Lion when resupplying on their feudal homeworld of Mortokar 7. Revered for their service within the Segmentum Pacificus, the Guardians of the Covenant are reputed for combating many Xenos threats within the Halo stars and veiled region of space. Involved in the extinction of several perfidious alien species, and honored for saving several planets from Orc, Necron, and Drukhari oppression, their service made during the Forlex rescue and Lilith incursion have earned them great renown across the Imperium. Uncharacteristically compassionate to the plights of the common citizenry of the Imperium for a successor of the First Legion, their cooperation with the Adeptus Mechanicus and championing of knowledge has earned them a reputation as level-headed and respectable allies. Clad in dark silver ceramite, adorned with black pauldrons and chest aquillas, the chapter marks their tactical role with red paint on their right pauldrons. Designating their squad with white low Gothic numerals on the center of such designs, each Astartes marks their company with the heraldry of the Unforgiven on their right knee plates. Each member of the chapters in a circle garbs themselves in crimson red tabards and cloaks to mark their knowledge of the fallen angels. The symbol of their chapter, two white swords crossed on a field of black, epitomizes their duty to defend humanity and combat its myriad foes. Continuing their mission to guard the Imperium from the denizens of the Halo stars, these scions of the Lion unleash their wrath from their cathedral homeworld time and again in order to preserve the innocence of humanity. The Knights of Abhorrence are a successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Created during an unknown founding, what can be gleaned of their origins is their peerless service within the Ghoul Stars for their initial 8 centuries of service. Forged from battles against the most terrible Xenos of this accursed region of space, the chapter fells the most dangerous of foes while simultaneously hunting the fallen angels of their primogenitors past. The first to alert Supreme Grandmaster Azrael of the formation of the Warp Rift of the Somnium Stars, which would in turn allow the escape of Sar Lufa from the prison of the Dark Angels Fortress Monastery, The Rock. The chapter has warned the Unforgiven for years of the amassed strength of the Fallen, rallying to record numbers within their territories. Clad in black ceramite, adorned with teal pauldron trim and chest aquillas, the chapter marks their tactical role with white paint on their right pauldrons, squad using black low Gothic numerals atop their designs, and company membership with white low Gothic numerals on their left knee guard. The symbol of their chapter, A white helmet of ancient Grecian design upon a field of black emphasizes their reverence of the warrior creeds of old Earth. Renowned for their service made during the Octarius War against the Orc and Tyranid menace, the chapter continues to stave off the rising threat of this ever-worsening theater of war. The Penitent Blades are a successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Created from an unknown founding, these Sons of the Lion inhabit the landmasses suspended atop a nameless world replete with highly corrosive oceans. Experts of aerial combat, due to their peculiar living conditions, the chapter employs 2 additional gunship pilots within their second company compared to their unforgiven peers. Clad in yellow and blue quartered ceramite, the chapter marks their company by use of the prescribed Codex Astartes color scheme on their chest aquillas, tactical roll with black paint on their right pauldron, and squad using white high Gothic numerals atop such designs. The symbol of their chapter, 3 downward pointed swords upon a field of orange, epitomizes their duty to defend the domains of humanity from enemy aggressors. While none know the reason for their repentant demeanor, the chapter's service during the Battle of Idolatros alongside their kinsmen has regardless earned them great respect among the unforgiven. The Angels of Defiance are an Ultima Founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Comprised entirely of Primaris Space Marines during the final days of the 41st millennium, the Angels of Defiance hold true to the words of their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, "He who endures, conquers." Capable of enduring immense suffering in order to protect the Imperium, though a fledgling chapter by all accounts, their limited service has regardless earned them high praise in the eyes of the Imperium. Adhering to the culture and conventions of their unforgiven chapter peers, the Angels of Defiance have formed their own elite first and second companies, as well as an inner circle elite who toil to hunt down the fallen. Clad in quartered ceramite of bone white and black livery, each Space Marine adorns their armor with bone white aquillas on their chests and tactical rolls on their right pauldrons. Designating their squad identifier with black low Gothic numerals on the center of such designs, as a partially Codex-compliant chapter, its members likewise to their peers utilize unique markings on their right knee plate to identify their squad. The symbol of their chapter, a key made of bone, centered on a field of black, symbolizes their duty to guard the secrets of their order from those not worthy to unearth their dark past. Each veteran donning forest green tabards and cloaks to signify their knowledge of the fallen. With the rise of the redeemed, risen of the Lion, it is unclear what new purpose these guardians of their former shame shall undertake. The Blades of Vengeance are an Ultima Founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Proven many times over during the Indomitus Crusade, their liberation of dozens of planets from oppression and destruction of doomed dens of heretics has earned them high praise in the eyes of the Imperium. Perceiving their time as members of the Crusade to benefit their brethren's hunt for the fallen angels of their past, their involvement during the War of Beasts was seen as peculiar due to their independent fighting far from other Imperial forces. Clad in forest green ceramite in honor of their primogenitor, with bone white faceplates and pauldrons, each Astartes bears a red aquila on their chest, marking their tactical role with black paint on their right pauldron with red low Gothic numerals centered on the designs to indicate their squad. Alike to other Unforgiven chapters, the Blades of Vengeance utilize heraldry on their right knee plate to identify their squad. The symbol of their chapter, a white downward sword on a shield of black, epitomizes their duty to take up arms in defense of the Imperium. Brilliant in their execution of counterattacks, and famed for upholding their Primarch's characteristic military pedigree during the Battle of Idolatros, the Blades of Vengeance shoulder the burden as the first of the Ultima Founding, gifted with his gene seed. The Prime Absolvers are an Ultima Founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. A dour and foreboding chapter, with their discovery of the fallen angels of their lineage. The chapter, regardless, felt no obligation to share the burden of their unforgiven peers. Their chapter master, Dargael Han, imparting the knowledge given by Supreme Grand Master Azrael to his own inner circle. The chapter, regardless, treat the Fallen alike to any other warband of traitor Space Marines, and refuse to supersede their own objectives when locating its members. Clad in blue ceramite, adorned with grey pauldron trim, deep red helmets, pauldron insets, arm plating and chest aquillas, the chapter marks their tactical role with white paint on their right pauldron, with black high Gothic numerals atop such designs, signifying their squad. The symbol of their chapter, a white 12-spoked wheel on a field of red, mimics the ancient torture device, the breaking wheel. Foreboding this chapter's dour nature, all who behold the sigil of their order quake with fear, envisioning their doomed fate to suffer broken bones and public execution. The Unnamed are an Ultima Founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Weighed heavily by the shame of their knowledge of the Fallen upon reuniting with their primogenitor, the Unnamed refuse to assume a title nor homeworld for their chapter. Clad in yellow ceramite, adorned with black faceplates, orange trim, and chest aquillas, each Astartes marks their tactical role with black paint on their right pauldron, with white high Gothic numerals to identify their squad. The symbol of their chapter, a black feathered quill on a field of yellow, epitomizes their duty to draft a new future for their unforgiven kin. Determined to seek out and destroy the fallen angels, it is unclear what new objective these Primaris Space Marines shall pursue with the return of the Lion and redemption of the Risen, with some speculating that soon they shall be deemed worthy of adopting a new title. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The Sons of the Lion have suffered the shame of their brethren's fall for millennia, shackled with bottomless guilt made through an act of deception against the wills of those they hunted. With the return of their stalwart Genesire, the faint glimmer of hope is rekindled in their eyes with the redemption of the Risen. Atonement, whilst a noble virtue, is wasted should the sin not be commensurate. And in the case of the inheritors of the First Legion, many of their kin have suffered unnecessarily. Should you have the means to forgive those who have wronged you, do not stymie their chance for redemption unnecessarily. Yet be wary of manipulation, for those who carelessly seek absolution often repeat their prior breach of trust.